Imagine sitting in a dimly lit lounge, the kind of place where the air is thick with stories, secrets, and the sharp sting of truth wrapped in laughter. Jaguar Wright, the fiery soul singer who never holds her tongue, leans forward in her chair, eyes flashing with that mix of defiance and weariness she's known for, and she says something that instantly grabs the room. Joan Rivers was right about Michelle Obama. That one sentence feels like a spark tossed onto a pile of dry leaves. Suddenly, the air shifts, people lean in, and the whispers start to ripple. What did she mean? Why would Jaguar, who spent years peeling back layers of the music industry and calling out powerful figures, invoke the late comedian Joan Rivers and tie her to Michelle Obama, one of the most beloved first ladies in modern history? To understand the weight of Jaguar's words, we've got to rewind and untangle the threads. This isn't just about a comment. This is about history, perception, comedy, politics, and the way truth, if there even is one, gets warped in the firestorm of celebrity culture. The ghost of Joan Rivers' joke. Joan Rivers, the queen of sharp-tongued comedy, built her career on saying what others were too polite to whisper. She was fearless, often offensive, but always captivating. In 2014, not long before her death, she was caught on camera tossing out a comment about Michelle Obama that turned into a wildfire of speculation. Asked when America might see its first gay president, Rivers quipped, "We already have it with Obama, so let's just calm down." You know Michelle is a tranny. For Rivers, that was just another day of shock humor. She thrived on crossing lines, testing patience, and leaving people wondering whether she was dead serious or just pulling their leg. But the internet doesn't do nuance. That comment, captured on a shaky phone recording, went viral and has haunted the edges of conspiracy circles ever since. And here's where Jaguar Wright re-enters the chat. Jaguar's role as the unfiltered storyteller. Jaguar isn't your average singer. Her voice isn't just melodic, it's a weapon. Over the years, she's used it not only to belt out soul, but to challenge the dark underbelly of the entertainment industry. She's called out abuse, exploitation, and corruption. Love her or hate her, you can't accuse her of playing it safe. So when she echoes Joan Rivers, she isn't just repeating a joke. She's dragging an old ghost back into the spotlight and daring people to look it in the eye. And in typical Jaguar fashion, she does it with the kind of raw conviction that makes you sit up straighter, even if you don't agree. The Obamas, icons and mysteries. Let's pause for a second. Michelle Obama is more than a former First Lady. She's a symbol. For many, she represents strength, grace, intelligence, and resilience. She's the woman who turned a White House garden into a movement for healthier kids, who delivered speeches that still echo in people's minds, who became a fashion icon while never losing the sense of being authentically herself. Barack and Michelle's love story became almost mythological, an American fairy tale. But here's the tricky thing about symbols. They're polished, managed, and curated. What the world sees is rarely the full picture. And that's the gap where rumors, jokes, and conspiracy theories grow wild. Joan Rivers' crack about Michelle being a tranny wasn't born in a vacuum. It fed into long-standing, cruel internet rumors, questioning Michelle's gender identity. Rumors with no evidence, but with enough shock value to keep resurfacing in corners of the web, where suspicion of power and disdain for political elites run deep. Comedy, conspiracy, and cultural power. It's worth pausing to think about the roles people like Joan Rivers and Jaguar Wright play. Joan used comedy to strip away the polite veneers of society. Jaguar uses storytelling and raw honesty to expose what she sees as lies within the music and entertainment world. Neither one is afraid of being labeled outrageous. And when outrageous people speak, the world listens, even if it's with shock or disbelief. But there's a fine line between comedy and cruelty, between questioning the official story and perpetuating harmful myths. When Rivers joked about Michelle Obama, was she just trying to get a laugh? Or was she tapping into something darker that she knew would resonate, however irresponsibly, with the public? And when Jaguar repeats that joke as truth, is she shining a light or throwing gasoline on an old fire? These questions matter because once words are out there, they take on lives of their own. A joke becomes a rumor becomes a headline becomes a belief, and beliefs, especially when they target women, black women, or anyone whose identity has been unfairly scrutinized, have consequences, the human side of it. All step back from the noise for a moment and think about Michelle Obama as a person. Imagine what it must feel like to have your body, your identity, your womanhood questioned so publicly, so viciously, for so long. She's admitted in interviews that the criticism she faced as First Lady often cut deep, that being called an angry black woman or reduced to stereotypes left scars. To then have strangers debate whether you're even the gender you say you are, that's a cruelty few could withstand. Jaguar's decision to resurrect Joan Rivers' words, whether you see it as bold truth-telling or reckless provocation, inevitably brushes up against that human reality. And that's where the tension lives, between the storyteller's desire to reveal hidden truths and the very real harm those truths can cause. The larger story, Jaguar wants to tell. When you listen to Jaguar, it's never just about one person. She weaves names and stories together like threads in a tapestry, each one pointing back to her larger claim that powerful industries and political machines manipulate us, control us, and feed us carefully crafted illusions. For her, invoking Joan Rivers and Michelle Obama isn't about gossip. It's about shaking people awake. This is why her words stick. They aren't tidy, they aren't polite, but they resonate with people who feel disillusioned, people who've lost faith in institutions, people who've seen too many scandals hidden until they can't be ignored anymore. So, was Joan Rivers right? Here's the honest answer. There's no credible evidence to support Joan Rivers' joke about Michelle Obama. None. It was comedy, shock value, the kind of outrageousness that made Joan Rivers who she was. But when Jaguar Wright says, Joan Rivers was right, she isn't necessarily talking about proof. She's talking about perspective, about the possibility that the polished images we're handed aren't the full story, the story we choose to believe. At the end of the day, Michelle Obama's life and identity are hers alone. What we know for sure is that she's carved out a legacy that transcends rumors. She's touched lives, opened doors, and become a role model for countless people who see themselves in her journey. No joke, no conspiracy, no viral clip can take that away. But Jaguar Wright's voice reminds us that stories are never just stories. They're battles for perception, for influence, for truth, whatever that means to each of us. And sometimes, the most uncomfortable voices are the ones that keep us from falling asleep at the wheel. So maybe the real takeaway isn't whether Joan Rivers was right. Maybe it's that we should always listen with both ears open, ready to question, ready to challenge, but also ready to recognize when a line has been crossed from truth-seeking into harm. Because at the end of the day, words matter. They can cut, they can heal, and they can outlive the people who first spoke them. And so we circle back to that dimly lit lounge, Jaguar leaning in with that sharp gaze, tossing her spark onto the pile. Whether you see it as fire or smoke is up to you, but either way you can't look away. If this conversation pulled you in, if you want more stories that dive beneath the surface and make you think twice about what you thought you knew, stick around, subscribe, follow along, and let's keep unraveling these threads together.